I'm here again, and what if I told you Pink Floyd's best albums perhaps aren't always the ones you think? From mind-bending classics to hidden gems that will blow your mind, today I'm covering the best Pink Floyd albums ever. Hidden gems and classics, how I enjoy listening to them, and you won't believe where some of your favourites might land. So, whether you're a newbie or a seasoned fan, I'm looking at how much I like listening to them, entirely subjectively. You can expect a short appraisal of each album, as well as my favourite track or tracks from that particular selection. Also, you are invited to add your order in the comments below, if it's different from mine. Now, I really welcome that input and look forward to seeing what you guys come up with. There's 15 albums to look at, so let's get cracking. I'm going to start with Endless River from 2014. Now, this is primarily an instrumental album created from the leftover sessions during the Division Bell recordings. It's really a tribute to keyboardist Rick Wright, who sadly passed in 2008, and it's really much seen as a reflective, atmospheric journey that nods to Pink Floyd's past. Now, whilst musically it's ambient and tranquil, it really lacks the structured songwriting of perhaps previous albums, which led some fans to perhaps hear it more as a soundscape or an epilogue to their illustrious career. Still, it holds nostalgic value for fans of the band's instrumental works. Louder Than Words, It's What We Do, and Anacina are perhaps best of the bunch on this one. More from 1969 is my 14th favourite and was Pink Floyd's first full-length movie soundtrack. It was created for the film of the same name, and it features a mix of acoustic ballads, experimental instrumentals, and harder rock tunes, showing the band's early attempt to balance film scoring with standalone songs. And while the album received mixed reviews due to its looser structure and film-specific compositions, it does showcase the softer side of Pink Floyd, particularly on tracks like Cymbeline. Fans appreciate its range, but it's really often overlooked when compared to the later, more refined works. Best songs, apart from Cymbeline, are The Nile Song and Green is the Colour. There's another soundtrack album, Obscured by Clouds, from 1972 next, and with this album composed for the French film La Vallée. The album serves as a transitional word, bridging the spacey psychedelia of the band's earlier years with the more polished conceptual sound that they would perfect in Dark Side of the Moon some years later. Now, although many of the tracks feel more concise and song-based, it does retain a cinematic quality with moody instrumentals and some reflective lyrics. Quite often underappreciated and overshadowed by other of the more iconic albums that followed. What's the Deal, Childhood's End, and Free Fall are three good songs from this album. A Saucer Full of Secrets from 1968 is my 12th favourite, and was the second and last album to feature Syd Barrett. It represented the band's shift from Barrett's quirky, psychedelic pop toward more experimental and atmospheric compositions. The arrival of David Gilmour during the album's recording is really quite evident in the evolving sound that changed. Now, while the album is uneven due to Barrett's fading contribution, it does contain standout moments of real sonic exploration that hinted at the progressive direction that Pink Floyd would soon take. I absolutely love Set the Controls for the Heart of the Sun, as well as the title track as well. Now, the final cut in 1983 is often considered a Roger Waters solo project in all but name, and was conceived as the continuation of The Wall. It's my 11th favourite, but the album has a deep personal and politically charged thread to it, with Waters focusing on themes of war, loss and disillusionment with the British government of the time. There's the sombre tone and lack of David Gilmour's creative input, and this alienated some fans, but others appreciated its raw emotion and sharp political commentary. It's not as diverse as some earlier albums, but its lyrical depth did resonate with many listeners. Their song, The Fletcher Memorial Home, Now, a momentary lapse of reason from 1987 was the band's return after Roger Waters' departure, with David Gilmour very much taking full creative control at this point. Now, it's much more polished, but still has an 80s production style feel to it, leaning heavily on those atmospheric guitars and synthesized soundscapes. Now, while critics noted its less cohesive structure compared to earlier concept albums, it was a commercial success. And tracks like Learning to Fly and On the Turning Away really became firm fan favourites. The album re-established the band's relevance in the post-Waters era, even if it didn't quite fully recapture the magic of the past. Best song is undoubtedly Learning to Fly. Atom Heart Mother saw Pink Floyd pushing the boundaries of progressive rock with its ambitious title suite, which really included an orchestra and choir. The album is a blend of experimental symphonic rock with elements of jazz, classical and avant-garde music in there to boot. Though it marked a key step towards the band's later successes, Atom Heart Mother is often viewed as an intriguing but perhaps flawed experiment, with some of the tracks lacking the cohesion of some of the later works. It may be to be expected. However, what it did do was showcase their willingness to explore new musical terrain. I just love the Atom Heart Mother suite. It's a big favourite of mine. Omegoma from 1969 is a double album with one disc featuring live recordings and the other showcasing individual compositions by each member of the band. Those live tracks captured the intensity and improvisational nature of their earlier performances, while the studio disc presents some avant-garde experiments where each member explored their own ideas. Now, the album's abstract experimental nature makes it one of their more challenging works, make no mistake about that, appealing primarily to die-hard fans. Its ambition, though, was to set the stage for the later, more refined experimentation. Best songs are the live version of Careful With That Axe, Eugene. The Division Bell, released in 1994, was the band's final studio album with Gilmour, Wright and Nick Mason. It emphasised themes of communication relationships, the passage of time, and there's a warm production and melodic focus. It really felt more reflective than some of the band's previous albums. Rick Wright's contributions were much more prominent than perhaps on A Momentary Lapse of Reason, and it giving a much more collaborative feel to this one. While it is more introspective and less aggressive than earlier work, tracks like High Hopes became late career highlights, which for me is simply the best track on the album, and in the top 3 songs of my all-time, in my opinion. Now, The Piper at the Gates of Dawn from 1967 is their psychedelic debut, dominated by Syd Barrett's whimsical and surreal songwriting. It's very much a unique artifact of those late 60s underground scenes, you know those ones, filled with playful lyrics, dreamy soundscapes, and pioneering use of those studio effects. The album explores space, fantasy, and experimentation. It cements the band as one of the most innovative bands of their time at that particular time. Now, while later albums took a much more serious tone, this remains a charming and mind-bending introduction to their earlier style. Best tracks for me are Astronomy Domini and also Interstellar Overdrive. I like that one. Metal, released in 1971, marked the moment that Pink Floyd began to develop the sound that would define their classic albums. The Centerpiece Echoes is a 23-minute epic that combines lyrical beauty with expansive instrumental experimentation, and this foreshadowed the sonic landscapes that came with The Dark Side of the Moon. This album balances some shorter, more accessible tracks with this long-form composition, showing the band's ever-increasing ability to fuse melody and atmosphere. It's widely seen as a major step forward, setting the stage for their peak era. Now, besides Echoes, I really enjoy One of These Days. Animals, released in 1977, And it's one of Pink Floyd's darkest and most politically charged albums, because it was inspired by George Orwell's Animal Farm, and it critiqued power structures by depicting humans as animals: dogs, pigs and sheep. The album's 3 long, aggressive tracks showcased Roger Waters' growing control over the band's lyrical direction, while Gilmour had some searing guitar work that took centre stage musically. Now, it's often referred as being less accessible than Wish You Were Here or The Dark Side of the Moon, but it has become a fan favourite for its biting commentary and dense, powerful music. Best song is Sheep. Wish You Were Here from 1975 is really a tribute to former bandmate Syd Barrett, and is a deeply emotional album that explores themes of absence, alienation and commercialisation of the music industry. The centrepiece, Shine On You Crazy Diamond, is an epic homage to Barrett, while Wish You Were Here is one of the most poignant songs in Pink Floyd's catalogue, I believe. The album is musically and thematically rich, with stunning production and a cohesive sound, making it a fan favourite without a doubt, and a major critical success. Best song's a no-brainer: Shine On You Crazy Diamond, every day of the week. Now, The Wall from '79 is a rock opera that tells the story of Pink, a character based on Roger Waters, who isolates himself from the world due to trauma and social pressures. The album explores themes of alienation, of madness and authoritarianism, and this is all set against the backdrop of cinematic music and theatrical production, with iconic songs like Comfortably Numb and Another Brick in the Wall. The Wall became one of the best-selling albums of all time. Its grand scope and narrative ambition made it a monumental piece of rock history. Best song, Comfortably Numb, is another absolute no-brainer. So, The Dark Side of the Moon, recorded in 1973, is regarded as one of the greatest albums of all time. It's a concept album that tackles universal themes, such as time, of mortality, of mental illness and greed. It's known for seamless structure, with each track flowing into the next, and its groundbreaking use of studio technology. The album's rich, atmospheric sound, pairing that with some philosophical lyrics, struck a chord with millions worldwide. Songs like Time, Money and Us and Them became timeless classics, cementing Pink Floyd's place in musical history. There's no doubt about that. There really isn't much more to be said about this one that hasn't already been said by much better commentators than me. Best song? Simply all of them. So there you are. This is how I love the Pink Floyd albums, from 15 down to my favourite. Let me know your thoughts and positions in the comments. Have I made any real big blunders? Let me know. I'd love to hear from you guys, and will respond to as many comments as I can. Now, whilst these are how I regard the Pink Floyd albums, I've also done a video on some of my other favourite albums from the Big Six. Keep an eye out for that one. If the video is ready, you will see it here on screen. If you don't see it yet, it means I haven't posted it, so make sure that you hit the notification bell and the subscription box so you don't miss out. Look, thank you all for watching this one, and I look forward to seeing you on that next video.